Okay, as discussed in the previous video, we talked about step number 1, which is to factor out the greatest common factor. So let's practice a couple of problems doing that. So we're going to factor out the greatest common factor. When I looked at the 3 terms, what I want to do is decide what number can I divide into all 3 terms. If you notice the 7, so I can divide all 3 by 7. So I can factor a 7. Now I'm going to look at my x's. Here I have an x to the 5th, x to the 3rd, and x to the 2nd. Well, I'm going to select the smallest exponent, which happens to be x to the 2nd. So I can take out an x to the 2nd out of both. Now notice once again that I'm going to take a look at my y. Y to the 1st power happens to be the smallest, so I'm going to factor out a y out of all 3 terms. Now my final answer then when I get ready to do it will be what I factored out, which happens to be 7x squared y. Now I'm going to reduce each one of my terms. When I reduce this, I end up with 5 x to the 3rd and y to the 2nd. Okay, then I'm going to do my next one. 7 goes in the 14, so that's 2. Subtract, and I end up here with just the y. Plus, reduce this with a 3. Notice here my x squares and my y squares cancel out. So now, this now becomes now my factor, which happens to be here. Let's look at the next one, just to review one more time. Here, once again, I'm going to look to see which one can I factor out. So first I'm going to start with my number or coefficient. Notice here I can factor out an 8 from here and an 8 from this one. Once again, I will look at just my a. A to the 4th is the smallest exponent, so I'm going to factor out an a to the 4th. Then I'm going to look at my b. Both happen to have b, so I'm going to factor out the smallest, which happens to be b squared. Now, what I'm going to do next then is to first put in what I factored out, which happens to be 8a to the 4th, b to the 2nd, and now I'm going to reduce my fraction that I have here, which is 3. Looks like the a's canceled out, leaving me a b only to the 4th. My a's are reduced. I'm left with 1a, my 8th review, and I'm left with 1a. It looks like the b's are canceled out as well. So now, this becomes my final answer as far as step number 1, which is to factor out the greatest common factor.